Hey there. Today the moon is in Virgo, asking us to think more about how we can improve, what we can be better at, and it brings up this part of ourselves that we might call the inner critic. And so if you have an inner critic, or if you notice ways that you feel less than or not good enough, then today we're going to be talking about how to stop that inner critic in its tracks. So stay with me. I've got 3 ways to stop that inner critic in its tracks. I'm Marina Ormes here with your Astro Vibe for Wednesday, October 11th. The moon continues today in Virgo, completing this moon cycle that began with the Virgo new moon, bringing themes as we've evolved through this moon cycle over the past 3.5 weeks. Through the process of discovering our path of service, how we can be more humble, more focused on improvement and learning, rather than focused on this inner critic. So if you have an inner critic, then today we're going to talk about some ways to look at that, to address it, because that might be coming up as something for you to work with, for something for you to complete, in terms of thinking about what you've learned in this current moon cycle. And I've been sharing in recent videos about Pluto stationing direct last night, and Mars going into Scorpio tomorrow. So actually tonight, depends on your time zone, but some of these energetic shifts are taking place that are bringing in themes of power, of intensity, of revealing a deeper truth, connecting more with our own place of truth and honesty and authenticity. So this is just where this particular Virgo moon is landing in the middle of these other developments astrologically. And so I'm going to share with you 3 ways to stop your inner critic in its tracks. And these are some tools you can use if you notice yourself being hard on yourself, if you notice yourself comparing yourself to others, or not feeling good enough, or any of those things that you might be noticing that Virgo allows us to see, right? It allows us to see where things can be improved upon. So how can we make the most of that? How can we turn it from something that makes us feel less than or unworthy to realizing, hey, this is simply the invitation of the zodiac and the universe to help us get on track with what we're learning, how we're growing, how we're developing, how we're integrating new awareness and areas that we can improve upon. Okay, so these are some great reframes. I think you're going to love them. And the first one of the 3 ways to stop your inner critic in its tracks is if you are noticing that you don't feel good enough, to reframe that to asking yourself, what can I do today to help me reach that ideal? So what is it you don't feel good enough about? Is it something that you feel like you'll never achieve? Is it something that you just don't feel like you have the skills or the expertise, or somehow not as good as someone else? And so whatever that ideal is, ask yourself, what is it that I want? What would that ideal look like? What would it be for me to have that experience, to have that flow of support, or to have that ability to share my gifts, or to do the things that I want to do in my job or in my relationship or whatever. So wherever you don't feel good enough, you can ask yourself, instead of saying, I don't feel good enough, or I'll never be good enough, ask yourself, just reframe that, turn it around and say, what can I do today to help me reach that ideal? So and that brings it right back into the present moment. It brings it right back into something you can do something about, and it helps you get in alignment with the outcomes you want to create. So great reframe. What can I do today to help me reach that ideal? Don't measure yourself against it, or decide already that you'll never get there, or decide that because you haven't gotten there yet that it's not possible. None of that is true, right? The truth is that you have today, and maybe there's something you can do today or tomorrow that will be in alignment with moving you in that direction. And that is what that Virgo moon wants us to do, is to see where we can improve. Okay, so that was number one. If you're feeling not good enough, or like you don't measure up somehow, ask yourself, what can I do today to reach that ideal? Number two, if you find yourself comparing yourself to someone else, like, I wish I was more like this person, or I wish I had what they have, or I wish whatever it is, right? Whatever it is you think that they have that you don't have, that somehow you're not capable of having, or whatever it is in your life that feels like it's stopping you from having that thing that you want. So a reframe for that: if you feel like you're comparing yourself to someone, you wish you were more like someone else or had what they had, ask yourself, how can I be more like myself? Right? Instead of asking yourself, how can I be more like that person? How can I be more like myself? Because who you are, and your soul, and your soul's truth, and your soul's potential is achievable for you, right? You're not trying to be someone else. You're trying to be the very best version of you. So how can I be more like myself? All right, so that was number two. If you find yourself comparing to someone else, instead of asking how you can be more like them, ask how you can be more like yourself. Number three, if you find that you're not measuring up to your expectations for yourself, in other words, things like, I'll never be this, or I'll never have that, or this just not, I'm this many years old and I haven't been able to do it yet, therefore I will never be able to do it or have it, right? So instead of that, comparing yourself to where you thought you should be by now, instead, let's reframe that and say, here's what I've learned on my journey to becoming more whatever it is. So now you see yourself as on the journey, as having the experience, as having had this story you can tell of all the things you've learned trying to become that thing that you think you should be by now, right? And so now you're the holder of the wisdom, right? Okay, so if you feel like you will never be whatever it is, or that you should be something by now, or you should have accomplished something or gained something by this point in your life, let's reframe that and say, here's what I've learned on my journey to becoming what I am today, or to trying to be what I think I should be, right? Maybe it's not even about being that. Maybe it's about all the things you've learned on the way that we can call wisdom, experience, stories to tell. And those have value, and you have value in sharing your process of how you got here, and how that can continue to unfold, obviously in number one and number two, where you can ask yourself, what can I do today to further continue on this journey? So just to recap, the three best ways to stop your inner critic in its tracks with today's Virgo moon, which it does have that critical tendency, that tendency towards self-criticism. So number one is, if you feel you're not good enough, or you haven't achieved something, what can I do today to reach that ideal? So, right, break it down into the minutia, into the one little teeny tiny action step or affirming thing that you can do for yourself. Can you write it down as an affirmation? You know, that's a teeny tiny thing that you can do that helps you to reach that ideal. And so it's taking the steps, it's affirming your right to have those things and moving it in that direction. That's number one. Number two is to reframe where you may be comparing yourself to someone else and instead turning that around and asking, how can I be more like myself? Instead of asking, how can I be more like that other person, that famous person who has everything, right? How can I be more like myself? Because I guarantee you, you would rather be yourself than that other person when it comes down to it. All right. And then number three, if you feel like you have not measured up to where you think you should be by now, what have you learned on that journey to where you are headed? And how can you tell that story? How can you recognize the wisdom you have from all the pitfalls and stops and starts and mistakes you've made and things you've learned on the way? Because all of that contributes to who you are and what you have to share or offer others. Because maybe it's you could be there for someone with a listening ear. Maybe it's you can tell your story in a way that's funny. Or maybe it's you can relate to someone else who's having some of those pitfalls and you get, yes, I recognize that. I've been through that. Let's have a good laugh about that or even cry about that. So those are the three ways to stop your inner critic in its tracks. I would love to hear from you how inner critics might be showing up for you, what you notice, what works for you to help shift some of those critical voices that may show up in your own mind. All right. Thank you so much for being here. I am Marina Ormes. You can learn more about me at astrologyheals.com. And I'll share a little bit more tomorrow about Mars going into Scorpio and how that is helping us to awaken our courage, specifically our courage to transform. We're in a very transformative set of energies, a lot of going into that process of accessing the deeper places of awareness and bringing things into consciousness that we may not have been aware of previously. So how can we work with that energy to facilitate our ongoing transformation, work with the upcoming eclipses and more? I'll share that with you tomorrow. So check back with me. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and thank you for your support. I love to hear your comments and thank you for all the likes and sharing with your friends. All right, I will see you next time with more astrology for unshakable self-care. Bye for now.